Today, we're going to dive into a timeless story, a fable, really, but its lesson, well, it's more relevant than ever, especially if you find yourself in a demanding professional role. So let's get into the story of a donkey named Dio. And this right here, this quote really gets to the heart of the problem, doesn't it? It's the central paradox of Dio's life. It perfectly sets the stage for his whole journey, where he has to learn the huge difference between being genuinely helpful and just being used. All right, so let's set the scene. Our story starts in this beautiful place, Dio's Valley. And Dio, well, he lived by this one simple but really dangerous belief. He thought his value, his worth, came from his endless service to others. He was, the nice one. And this wasn't just some fleeting thought. This was his core belief system, the story he told himself every single day. He truly, genuinely believed that if everyone needed him, if he was indispensable, then they must love and respect him. That idea was the engine that just kept him going, day in and day out. So what did that look like in practice? Well, it was just this relentless cycle of giving and giving and giving. He'd carry heavy wood for the horse, pull the cart for the goat. He'd even stand guard for the cow for hours under the hot sun. He gave away his own food, he sacrificed his rest, and the crazy part? He did it all with a smile, because he thought, this is my purpose. Let's just pause right here for a second, because this is a big one. I want you to really think about this for your own life, your own work. Have you ever mistaken being useful for being valued? Have you ever fallen into that trap of thinking that what you do for people is what makes you worthy of their appreciation? Well, as you can probably guess, this just couldn't last forever. I mean, you can only give so much before the well runs dry, right? And for Dio, that moment, it was coming up fast. And then came the morning where it all came crashing down. He was just physically spent. His legs were shaking, his back was burning, and he was starving because he'd given his last meal away. And even then, can you believe it, when the horse came up with another urgent request, habit just took over. He still said yes, and that one lost load, that's what finally broke him. So there he is, collapsed on the ground, completely exhausted. And how many of the animals he'd helped came to check on him? Take a guess. This number says everything you need to know. 0. Not one. Not a single soul. Just imagine that, lying there on the cold ground, completely and utterly alone. And the worst part, the valley all around him was buzzing with the very life and laughter he had worked so hard to make possible, but nobody even noticed he was gone. And right there, in that awful, painful silence, this one question started to form in his mind. A question that was about to change his entire life. He asked himself, do they love me, or do they just love what I do for them? The silence was the only answer he got, and it was a heartbreaking one. Now, this realization, it was Dio's rock bottom. But you know what they say about rock bottom? It's a pretty solid foundation to build on. This was his awakening, and he was about to reclaim his life with a single, powerful word. The very next morning, when the horse came around as usual, Dacio just looked at him and said, no. It wasn't angry. It wasn't loud. It was just quiet, final, unshakable. It was the sound of a boundary being drawn for the very first time in his life. And in that moment, Dio learned a truth that was both devastating and somehow liberating. The valley didn't stop. The horse carried his own wood, the goat pulled her own cart, the world kept spinning. He realized they never actually needed him. They just needed someone, anyone, who couldn't say no. And that's where his transformation really began. He started eating his own food first, resting when his body told him to. His entire motivation shifted away from this desperate need for other people's approval to this calm internal sense of self-respect. So this little fable, it's actually a massive lesson for all of us. But it's especially powerful for leaders and mentors who are trying to build teams that are not just productive, but resilient and healthy. Look, this story isn't just about animals in some make-believe valley. It's a mirror. It's a perfect metaphor for the modern workplace. Dio carrying wood for others? That's the colleague who always takes on just one more extra project. Giving away his food? That's you skipping lunch again to meet a deadline. And his total collapse? That's professional burnout, plain and simple. I love this line from the story. It says, Dio became solid, like a tree with deep roots that no wind could move. That's the goal here. Setting boundaries doesn't make you cold or unhelpful. It makes you solid. It gives you deep roots of self-respect, so you can stand firm, respected not just for what you do, but for who you are. Okay, but how do we actually do this at work without feeling like a jerk? Let's break down 3 really practical ways to say no effectively. This is a great framework you can even share with your own team. Okay, step 1 is the clear and calm no. It's direct, it's respectful, and you don't need a 5-minute apology. A simple, I'm not able to take that on right now, is powerful. Step 2, if it feels right, is to offer the alternative path. This shows you're still a team player, but on terms that respect your own limits. Something like, I can't help today, but I can definitely look at it next week. And finally, step 3, the confident close. This is key. Stop apologizing for having boundaries. Your time and your energy are valuable, period. And that really brings us to the core lesson of this entire fable. True respect, both from other people and from yourself, it doesn't come from giving every last piece of yourself away. It comes from knowing your own value and honoring your own limits and needs. So, I'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. Take an honest look at your own life, your own to-do list. What is one load you are carrying right now that isn't actually yours? And more importantly, what would it look like to respectfully and confidently set it down?